Hello?
I mean,
I'm alright, thank you. Can you hear me? I'm using a new mic. Is it working? Okay, I might need to twist my. Happy
Alright.
holidays, Red.
Hello. That'd be cool. How's
Am I
it
coming-
going?
Am I coming in clear for you?
I can hear everybody.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good to know.
All right. Well, welcome to Project Console, episode 12. Title is "We Forgot the Recipe." And before we get started on our topics, like everybody to introduce themselves. Jewel.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen of all ages, to Project Console, the last one of the year. Oh boy, what a year it's been.
Yeah. This was Red Fox on proprietor BS Busters, and I'm ready to have another Project Console cast.
All right. So the first story um, is the Final Fantasy VII. No, it's first. No, actually, the first story is games are getting fatter. So it was Elden Ring, and it was Forbidden West, Horizon Forbidden West, that got their day one or their storage
Day one
capacity
DLC patch.
or their storage capacity announced. Um, Horizon Forbidden West will be 93.65 gigabytes first day. I think that's including the day one patch. Elden Ring will be 44.72. I think that's without the day one patch. And while these aren't the biggest games I've seen, it,
It's
it
still
seems
thick.
yeah, they're still pretty big, and we've gotten to this point where 500 gigabytes definitely isn't enough. Terabyte is barely enough. I would say a 4 terabyte, 2 to 4 terabyte hard drive is probably is probably where it's at. And also not to mention that a lot of these games get bigger over time with patches and of
Extra
course
content.
extra content, and it's I don't know. I wish they would, especially with certain countries, and I think certain companies have data caps, so you can only
So
use so
much.
many gigabytes or terabytes before they either throttle your connection or they're like, well, that's enough internet for you for the month. So,
Um,
what do you guys think about these game sizes?
Uh, eh. Um, Mr. Red Fox, I think you can use the "you're so fat" jokes right now, cause
Good,
the
but I won't.
oh come on, Red, that was easy. That was easy targets right there.
These games are so fat that when they sit down in a movie theater, everything else sits near them. These games are so fat that I can't think of any fat Yo Mama jokes. I haven't done a Yo Mama. I haven't done the dozens in over 20 years.
So, what we're obviously this problem was created uh, for one reason, the introduction of the hard drive, and
Yep.
I guess the argument that you could make is that well, games are so much bigger and more complicated than they used to be. Where in reality, it's just a lot of use. It's just a lot of bloat code that's in the game. It's like
I mean, I don't know enough about programming to say it's bloat code. I will say that none of these companies are really using compression for their games anymore.
yeah,
Like they refuse to use compression, and I can understand I mean they just refuse to use compression, and this is hitting everything. This isn't just like PC or PS5 or PS or
Yeah.
Xbox Series X. The Switch, there are games you can buy on the Switch. You buy the cartridge, but then you got to be hooked up to the internet to get the rest of the damn game.
yep, yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, exactly. You have to.
so you know,
There's
it's
GTA,
ridiculous.
the GTA trilogy that you had to download some extra patches or the rest of the game in order to play it.
I mean, they're first party games that are like that now, where the base game
It's
might
so
fit on the
thick.
cartridge, but then the extra stuff, it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to get an SD card, a micro SD card, in order to expand my memory.
Yeah, yeah.
Just this is the world we live in, folks. You
Sadly.
know,
I mean, I guess the bright side to this is that storage is getting
Cheaper.
cheaper. So
I guess it's getting cheaper. That's what they say. I don't really
I
know.
was gonna say it depends on where you live, but
It also depends on the kind of storage you get. I mean, you can buy a 12 terabyte spinning 7200 um, RPM drive for $300 versus
Yeah, but
a 4 terabyte SSD for like $600. So I
yeah,
guess
but if you do the former, which is the old gen, you're not going to be gaming on that unless it's like old SD, like old like games from 2 gens ago. Um, because like you're not going to have the bus in order to
work with certain things.
well, there's your CPU and GPU aren't going to be able the RAM on your PC or the RAM in your gaming device is not going to have the speed is not going to have the lanes available to access that data and make it really playable. So if you're playing something that requires like a lot of RAM
Reading.
usage and like it's a huge game and a lot of assets are being accessed in order for it to load stuff, then I mean it's going to run like shit. If you're doing an old HD drive like last gen, even the most current 2 gen HD drives with huge capacity are still going to have issues, especially if your PC because like I think the best you can get on a like on the newest USB um is let me look this up because I don't want to say something and have it not be uh latest USB speeds. The latest USB speeds 3.2 is 10 gigabytes per second. And that's if you have a mother if it's on PC, that's if you have a motherboard that can take advantage of it.
yeah.
Um and that's still not fast enough for a lot of games.
As long as
If
you pertaining to spinning hard drives, as long as you got something that's 7200 RPMs, because I have I have a 10 terabyte spinning hard drive and I don't have a problem with it. I mean, obviously the loading speeds aren't going to be as fast as they are on an SSD, but that's
yeah,
fine for me.
like I said, it depends on what your hardware setup is. But for gaming, like like if you have a library of games on your device, on your hard drive, and you're trying to access it, if you're trying to access that shit and you have kind of a shitty RAM usage on your device, it's not gonna connect.
Yeah.
It's I mean it just depends on like okay like I had an old well not an old hard drive I had a decent sized hard drive that I basically said to myself I said self um I'm gonna turn this into a media server because I'm tired of um you know clacking through DVDs VHSs and Blu-ray. So it's a um, it's a it's a 12 terabyte. It's a 12 terabyte hard drive. Um, I got it on sale for like 3 years ago for like it was retailing for like $3.99. I got it off of Amazon for like 100 off, so it was like $2.99.
Yeah.
But so I took that and I turned that to a media server. Now, as a media server, it's great because it's just connected to an old desktop, and it's just accessing like it's just streaming stuff from there to my TV. But if I was trying to game off of that, if I'm like, because most of the games I have are old, so they aren't like,
They're not
it's
intensive.
Yeah, it's not resource intensive for my PC to run. But I've had games where I'm like trying to run it off of something that's more complex, like something that's more complex, and like I can see where something running off of my SSD versus something running off of my HD, I can tell the difference. Now that isn't always the case. To everyone it's different. You know, um, like you run Linux for your gaming computer, don't you?
No, I don't run Linux. But I've thought about it and I've tried using Linux.
Yeah,
Problem with Linux is it's a whole different animal. Um,
yeah. Well, you use NVIDIA. What's it called? NVIDIA. Forget. Like, because I know NVIDIA has a thing where basically, like like Nvidia made it so that the card, like more of the memory is used from your graphics card versus from AMD or Intel. So you basically get more performance from your device
yeah.
than say someone like me. So I mean, it's different for everyone. I'm just simply saying that, um, it. What it boils down to is that we don't have the um, we don't have like compression needs to be a thing because back in the day, even with like hard drives being what they were, they compressed stuff. The music files would be compressed, and then they'd have a
Yeah.
decompression when you were playing the game. But the
That's
actual music files were inherently compressed, and it would be
that's the
decompressed
sad thing
through
right now.
hardware.
Most of the that the most of the things that we have that are compressed are from one company, and even they are losing their touch with it.
No, back in the day, like during the sixth gen, like if you were talking the PS2, the GameCube, the Xbox, PC,
Yeah,
like certain files were always compressed. So then it would be smaller if you downloaded it, because downloading was first really taken off during the sixth gen, or if you like installed it or whatever. Like it kind of, you had a chance to kind of, it's like, oh, this isn't going to blow up my hard drive. Like, I don't know what. Telling you, man, that no one compresses anything anymore. They just kind of just throw it up there, and they're like, oh, we don't need to optimize this for anything.
yeah, that's what makes me wonder where the compression go. I
I
mean,
don't
is it a
know.
lost art?
I think that it's at this point, it's like the amount of like these files are so big that even with compression, it's not going to get better. And plus, if they do compression, they have to have some sort of decompression there as well, and no one really wants to do that unless it's first party, because they understand the hardware better than anyone else. But whatever, I don't know. That's my opinion. I could be wrong.
Not only compression, but like a lossless compression, because there's like when it comes to music files, there's obviously uncompressed audio, and then there's compressed audio like MP3, and
Yeah.
then they have a lossless technique for MP3 called obviously lossless MP3, which is a compressed file that loses very little of its quality. So, I mean, if we can get to that point where you can have a 4K open world game, big open world game like The Witcher, only be like 20, 30 gigs when it's all said and done.
Man, I'm
Patches,
gonna be in my 50s when that happens.
patches, um,
Patches will be 1 or 2
DLC.
gigs.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like if they could have, if we get to a point of lossless compression for visuals, that would be great, and you wouldn't have to spend all this extra money on resources. So,
Yeah, but I mean, come on, man.
uh,
That's a pipe dream.
yeah, I mean, I know it's not gonna happen. At least not. I don't think either in our life. It's not gonna happen in our lifetimes, or it's gonna happen very late in our lifetimes. But
It's because they just don't want to do it. They have no incentive to do any of this.
Yeah, people just just throw more money at your storage. That's all. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, yeah. Like back in the day, like 2 or 3 generations ago, you could buy a computer, and if it had 20 gigabytes of storage, you thought you were balling.
Oh yeah, I remember my first laptop. I was it had 40 gigabytes, and man, I was like, man,
You felt spoiled, didn't you?
Yeah,
You're like, man,
yeah.
I'm never gonna fill this up. Like now, if someone sold you a PC and they said it has 500 gigabytes, you would be insulted.
Yeah.
You'd be like, it's not enough to do anything.
There are laptops that sell with only 256 gigabytes for of flash storage for almost $1,000. I'm just kind of like, what?
What am I supposed to do with this?
yeah. Well, that's crazy.
It's sad that I'm the only one that tries to use space wisely and feel like this is just a joke right now.
No, everyone tries to use space wisely, but the thing is that okay, I have a lot of for example, okay, I have a hard drive that I basically imported a lot of my SNES, NES, N64, Sega Genesis, TurboGrafx 16. Like I imported a lot of my games to that hard drive. I've hooked it up to my PC so I can use RetroCore through Steam to play a lot of my old games on RetroCore because I get tired of dragging my CRT around and dragging my stuff around and going through cartridges and opening up boxes. It's a pain. It's much easier to just have everything in one place and then just plug it into something. And I mean, all my collection of games can fit on a small 120 gigabyte hard drive that I've also backed up to the cloud because that hard drive's getting kind of old. And it's still not full. It's only halfway full, and I can fit almost all of my games from the 3rd gen multiple consoles all the way up to the 6th gen multiple consoles. Once you hit the 7th gen, you can't do that. Games just blew up. And I mean, like I said, I think it's because no one has an incentive to optimize anything anymore. It's just like, well, we'll just port the PC game to console and call it a day.
Yeah, while we're on the topic of laziness, Final Fantasy VII Intergrade PC port is a mess. It is it's busted in the sense that it didn't come out with even the bare minimum pertaining to as PC ports go. Didn't come with a variable frame rate option, no way to tweak anti-aliasing, toggle VSync, or control effects like motion blur. So, yeah, I mean, that's just basic stuff. That's basic. Practically every game has have those features. Now,
do they though? No, I'm being facetious. I mean, look, man, it's Square Enix. Now, the hilarity about this, some people say, well, it's like they couldn't just find the time. Here's the issue. They released Kingdom Hearts 3 as an Epic Store exclusive for, 6 months or whatever. Just like this game is an Epic Store exclusive for 6 months or whatever. And yet, Kingdom Hearts 3 had more graphical options.
Yeah.
Than this game.
Yeah, and I would argue that Final Fantasy is a bigger franchise.
Oh yeah, it
Kingdom
is.
Hearts, and
it is a bigger franchise.
And they didn't put any effort. It's like, I feel like obviously the title's an exaggeration, but I feel like over the past couple of years, everybody just forgot how to make video games. You have Cyberpunk 2077 coming out busted. You have the trilogy busted can't even describe the mess that game is. And then you have
joke. It's a joke.
It's an absolute joke. You have the PC port of Final Fantasy VII, What else? What other big games came out this year that were just completely...
Battlefield.
Oh yeah,
Call of Duty
Battlefield.
Vanguard.
Battlefield came out absolutely broken.
Yeah.
Absolutely broken. It's I I mean, people can scream about, well, it's COVID. COVID made this happen, but there were plenty of games that came out
That weren't broken
that
like
weren't
that.
busted.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Can I can I rank on that a little bit?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm not going to stop you.
Okay. As much as I would say that COVID has made things a little bit odder for some companies over this past 2 years. Thank you, thank you, stupid people, for making it longer. I have to wonder, where the f are you guys thinking if this is if COVID is supposed to be the reason why they have bad games, but profit.
Sorry, what? Explain that again?
As a Think about it. COVID, some people are saying COVID-19 is the reason why some of these games are going into a bad state. And yet these same broken games are making bank.
Oh, yeah, I get what you're saying. The games are bad, but they're still making money because a lot of these people treat games like like it's a drug. They got to get their fix, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, for the last, if you follow the gaming community for as long as YouTube's been around, or it's just as long as you've been on the internet, whenever that was, you'll notice that gamers are like crack fiends.
Yeah,
They'll buy the next the biggest game that's coming out because they will submerge themselves in all the media hype and then be disappointed. And a lot of these people, what they'll do is they'll just end up trading that game in for the next big AAA uh, hype machine that just turns out to be
yeah,
another failure. And
yeah.
the cycle continues.
I think it's partially that. I also think it's also that they've been trained. They've been trained to pick up scatology, garbage. Because I mean, even before like the hype took over, like people have been trained. Well, I buy Call of Duty every year. I buy FIFA every year. I buy Madden every year. I buy these games every year. They're like a crack addict where someone's like, "Hey man, don't buy that crack over there. It's been cut and people have been dying from it. Man, I need my fix, baby." It's like, yeah, but there's a chance you're gonna die. Man, I need to get my hit. That's how gamers are. They are addicts. You know, and they will take that hit no matter what.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I'm gonna buy this game, but the game is fundamentally broken. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy it.
And I remember the vast majority of people that went out and defended Destiny was trying to find reasons why that game was one of the greatest games ever created. They, it was just kind of funny because
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah, and Destiny was a game that felt like it was supposed to be an MMO, but it's more like a FPS that had multiplayer tech pushed into it, as well as the game store that is supposed to be the descendant of Fallout 76's game store.
All right.
Well, I mean, I would say the first Destiny started out kind of bad, but over time, it became a better game. Destiny 2, really, I have to agree, there's very few redeeming features behind Destiny 2.
Well, the thing, like what I was trying to say, was that, there were people that defended that game and tried to make it out to be like the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they wouldn't give any other game of that caliber if it was made by a different company the same benefit of the doubt, because of the name that was behind it, Bungie. Now it's it's the same thing with a lot of Bethesda games. Because of the name Bethesda is stamped on the game. Well, it's the greatest thing ever, even though that's a buggy piece of it's a
trash.
Yeah, it's a buggy piece of trash.
Piece of trash. Yeah,
and you got people falling through the floor. You got
fundamentally bad coding.
Yeah, you got weird issues with the conversation trees and all this other stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, no, this is not a bug, it's a feature.
Yeah, with Bethesda games, the difference between Bethesda, like I was talking with a friend of mine because I know I said that I wasn't going to have people coming to my house during the holiday season, but someone talked me into it and people came to my house the day after Christmas. And I was talking with a friend of mine and he's like really into gaming. He's a tech reporter. And we were talking about the GTA Definitive Edition trilogy and why people were so angry about the Definitive Edition being a broken piece of trash compared to, when Bethesda releases games and they're broken is to all get out. And we both decided, after having a really good discussion on it, is that Bethesda games are broken, but you have a huge community of people that go out of their way to make their games better. GTA games, especially the PC versions of the Grand Theft Auto games, have not had a upgrade in over a decade. Most of them, and they are notoriously hard to mod. And Rockstar goes out of their way to attack modders who try and fix their games. So it's one of those things where it's like Bethesda knows their games are trash, but they're like, hey, we know our game. It's kind of like when you buy a piece of furniture and it's not the highest quality. You buy a piece of furniture, it's not the highest quality, so they include like a little touch up thing so you can touch it up when it gets scuffed. Yeah. It's like Bethesda's like, yeah, we know it's gonna get scuffed. We know this paint was cheap. Here's some paint to touch it up if someone scratches the paint. Okay, cool. Rockstar is like someone who will sell you a defective product and then get mad at you when you go to someone else to fix it.
Yeah. Well, I got a little clip. It's a short clip to show you pertaining to the obsession of gamer culture pertaining to products.
Oh, this is rich.
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next products.
Yep.
That's how I feel with certain communities.
Yep. Just don't ask any questions. Just get hyped for the next big thing. Don't think about it. Just go out and buy it. And if anybody says that this product is defective, or it's broken, or
just get it.
Just get it.
Yeah, just get it.
We're all gonna suffer together. And what we're gonna do is we're going to give this company billions of dollars, and then we're going to complain about how we're never gonna buy their product again, only to buy their product again, and the cycle continues.
Yep. That's it. and then when you call these people out on it, they get angry.
Yep. Yeah,
they get angry. Instead of, here's the thing. We've all been guilty of it. We've all bought things where it's like, you know what? I shouldn't buy this because this company ain't worth a darn. And we bought it. We bought it anyway. I'm pretty sure at some point Jewel has played a Pokemon game even after her. I'm done with these guys.
Oh no, I haven't. Nuh-uh, nuh-uh.
What, you didn't
can't
play
get me with
Pokemon
that.
Unite?
Oh, F you, no, I could shoot you with a shotgun for that line.
You didn't play Pokemon Go?
Are you kidding? That game is the reason why I hate Pokemon now, in a sense.
Alright.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, I mean,
You can't even get me
well,
on that.
Jewel is the unique person in that regard, because there's been times where I was like, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm not doing it anymore. And I was wrong. Because I would go back like Bethesda. Like, I legitimately think that Skyrim is one of the most overrated games I have ever played. But the only thing that makes Skyrim worth playing is you have, the you have the modding scene. Because if it wasn't for modding, Skyrim would just, no one would want to play Skyrim. You know?
oh yeah, that's the. I think honestly, Skyrim or any of those Morrowind games, at least the recent ones, because it seems like its popularity was grew when it came out on the 360. I think that really the only reason people like those games is because of the modding community. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest. Like, who in their right mind would buy those games on console unless that's just all you got?
Yeah. I mean, that's why Bethesda managed to turn some type of profit before they got bought by Microsoft, was because you had these dummies who bought it on the PS4, who bought Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 and Skyrim for the umpteenth time on the PS4. Because, like, anyone who will tell you, like, even people who are fans of Bethesda's games will say, do not buy these games on console, buy them on PC where you can mod them and make them more playable. And that's the same thing going on, like, I mean, but I'll be honest with you. Yeah, don't play a Bethesda game on console. Play it on PC where you can mod it and make it play better. And I mean, even the same thing with GTA. Like, if you're gonna play GTA, like any of the GTAs, any of the 3D GTAs, GTA 3, GTA Vice City, San Andreas, 4, 5, play it on PC. Don't buy that thing on a console, because you can cheat on PC.
Yeah.
you can cheat on PC. You can, but I mean, yeah, but back to Square Enix. Yeah, Square Enix. I'm not surprised that they would put out, because I mean, they just didn't. They didn't care. They did not care to actually. They didn't care to actually optimize anything. They had no reason to optimize anything. So why should they? Because it's Final Fantasy VII Remake, and people are going to buy it because they have nostalgia for Final Fantasy VII. Now, I personally think it's one of the most overrated Final Fantasies ever, but that's my own personal opinion. So,
Yep.
there's going to be people who are like, I'm going to get Final Fantasy whatever because it's Final Fantasy whatever. Darn the consequences, because it's Final Fantasy.
So.
Oh God, that is so much.
I guess while we're on the topic of Final Fantasy, bad news for anybody who is really looking forward for more information on Final Fantasy 16, because that announcement got delayed to like March, because apparently COVID-19 set them back about 6 months in development. So
yeah, because apparently,
Square
in
Enix,
Japan. No, sorry.
So Square Enix announced that they've delayed their announcement for Final Fantasy 16. And I'm just kind of like, I'm just shaking my head like, really?
They could have just said nothing.
Yeah.
And that would have been better. Like, why are you having an announcement to tell us that you're delaying an announcement? That is just stupid. That's like LeBron James, where he had the announcement to talk about the decision Like I'm going. Like he had like a press conference to talk about that he was going to have a press conference. I'm like, come on, man,
Wow.
just
I know
stop.
I know that's cheese, but if anything, if they were supposed to announce something this at near the end of the year, that really would have been as in it was scheduled and then it happened. That would have made a little bit more sense.
No, but here's the thing, though. They say that it's been delayed 6 months. They knew about this thing being delayed a year ago.
Yeah.
I
So
know.
this was just
It was
it was
just
an announcement to have an announcement.
it was a PR. It was a PR stunt to keep people's
Interest.
interest in
I-
Final Fantasy 16.
I was
Yeah,
just
that's what
saying-
that was.
I was at least saying if they would have an announcement and then it was canceled and they said that line, I would forgive them. But something tells me they didn't do that at all.
No, this was just a PR stunt, just to
Yeah.
just to keep interest in their less than fantastic Final Fantasy series. I stand by this. After Hironobu Sakaguchi left, Final Fantasy went down the tubes. The console mainline Final Fantasy series went down the tubes,
The single
and
player,
I mean the toilet. Okay.
the single player ones I could agree on. The multiplayer ones, as in 11 and 14,
You mean the ones that are MMOs?
yeah, that I could say that's a mixed bag.
Well, 11 was terrible. 14 was terrible in the beginning, and then they turned it around in the end. Like after the fact.
I call those mixed bags because, well,
But, you know.
it depends on your experience.
And the last good Final Fantasy I played was Final Fantasy 12. Every other Final Fantasy after that has just been terrible.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of it, at least Final Fantasy 13 was mainly focused on graphics, and Final Fantasy 15, I don't know what the heck was like. There's so much. I tried playing that game, and I
Yeah.
was just like, yeah, this game kind of feels like a mess. The art
Yeah.
style's a mess.
Yeah. Well, the game, like, it was like, I mean, like, okay, I'm an old school Final Fantasy fan. I just want four simple things. And this shouldn't be hard to do, but Square Enix just can't do it. Here's what they are, okay? I want an open world with towns and cities to explore, multiple party members, and a job system.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't need turn-based combat. Just just those four things.
I'm sorry, but you only listed 3.
No. It said open world, multiple party members, cities and towns to explore, and I don't even need turn-based combat. It could be real time. I don't care.
Okay, that last one I almost missed.
That's all I need. That's
only
it.
thing I have to look at you really odd like that last one.
Well, because Square Enix wants to mainline Final Fantasy, like make it like an ultra casual series, and casual people don't have the time or patience to have a turn-based combat.
Final Fantasy is is one of the easier games when it comes to turn-based combat. Like
It is, but I mean, Square Enix thinks that their player base is stupid, so they want to casualize it even more, which is why Final Fantasy VII Remake came out. So that's all I'm saying. That's all I want. Okay, can you do that?
Yeah.
And can we stop splitting up games into different parts? Can we just have one Final Fantasy game and have it be from start to finish? You can have expansions for it. It's like, hey, you beat the game. Okay, here's a $30 expansion that like adds a new continent to explore, and maybe like 1 or 2 new characters. I don't need it to be like, and stop trying to make characters popular who people don't like. Like, that's why 13 got on my nerves, because Lightning was like someone vomiting and then trying to tell you, no, the vomit isn't vomit, it's really stew. No, it's vomit. and then they're like, okay, I'll take it to the back and give you the stew. But they come out and it's the same thing over and over again 2 times over with 13.2 and 13.3.
Yeah, they tried to write a female Cloud. That's what they tried to do. And it's just,
Yeah.
but
Never realizing that Cloud is a boring protagonist.
Yeah.
Okay?
I was about to say, the only reason that he has fame is because of Zack, and Zack was, well, take it as you will.
Well, I mean, the whole point behind Cloud. But it makes sense in the original Final Fantasy VII because Cloud is basically just a failed Genova clone. He's a failed Genova clone. That's the whole point of Cloud, is he is not human, and over the course of the game he becomes more human.
Yeah.
Okay? It's
Yeah.
like RoboCop, where he's a human in the beginning, and then he dies, he's brought back as a cyborg, he thinks he's a machine, and then by the end he reclaims his humanity. Okay, that's Cloud. He starts out as a clone, as a Genova clone, a super soldier, and his memories aren't even his own. His memories he got from Zack Fair. Okay?
Like I said, he got most of his personality from Zack.
Yeah, he has no identity. The whole point of Final Fantasy VII, in terms of the personal quest for Cloud Strife, is that he gains his own identity.
Yeah.
Okay, look, listen. Like I just said, Final Fantasy VII, in my opinion, very overrated game. But I get what Hironobu Sakaguchi was going for. I get it. Okay, I get what the overarching theme was. Final Fantasy 13. Oh man, that game is just trash. I mean, it is like literally the first 60% of the game is you being led down a corridor, and basically you upgrading your the weapons you start with. If you upgrade them enough, are more powerful than anything you find in the later dungeons. And the game doesn't even open up until you're at the halfway mark. That is terrible.
I thought it was chapter
Game design.
10.
What?
I thought it was chapter 10, which is about 30 hours in.
No, it's you go through about 50% of the game, and then the game opens up. And by that point, it's like,
Really?
what's the point? Yeah, because even when you first get to even when you get outside of like the little corridor section of the opening of the game, and you get to Grand Cocoon, outside of Grand Cocoon to like the outside, you're still kind of led a little bit to where you need to go and what you need to do, and the game doesn't open up. Like, why would anyone think, let's make a Final Fantasy where you can't explore and find stuff? Who thought that was a good idea?
I didn't play through the entire game because I was so annoyed with all the stupid lingo that they were throwing at you without dropping any hints of what that lingo was.
And plus the characters. Lightning sucked. That black guy with the bird in his head with the afro, he sucked. Snow sucked.
I thought the only person that was the least suckiest, and even he sucked, was the black person.
No. There were no redeeming characters in Final Fantasy 13. And to be honest with you, I played about 5 hours of 13-2, and I was like, I'm done. I'm done. They're basically ripping off Chrono Trigger, except it's like a really bad rip-off of Chrono Trigger.
No. That's not in 13. That's in
13-2. That's what I said. 13-2 I played 5 hours of, and it's a rip-off of Chrono Trigger.
I was trying to be sure, just in case the audio.
No, that's what I said. I said 13-2 is a rip-off of Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
And I was like, how dare you rip off Chrono Trigger? You people have no sense of shame.
So going into 13-2, oh god dang it, my head.
It's a better game than Final Fantasy 13.
And this hurts me more than Final Fantasy 13 itself.
Oh, it's a better game than Final Fantasy 13. It is. It really is a better.
I'm sorry, the lore person in me hates Final Fantasy 13-2 harder.
I mean, yeah, Final Fantasy 13-2 on a technical level is a better game because there are towns to explore. The party members aren't nearly as annoying, but
you only get 2 party members and a pet. But
the problem with 13-2 is that it's aping Chrono Trigger, and if you're gonna ape Chrono Trigger, there's games that have aped Chrono Trigger and done it better, like Radiant Historia.
Yeah.
Radiant Historia apes Chrono Trigger and does it so much better.
Yeah.
Heck, we had a game that came out last year, Chris Tales. That apes Chrono Trigger. Does it much better.
God, it feels sick knowing that 13 and 13-2 were terrible. As in, it was 13 for me was terrible, but it tried to do stuff because it tried to do it on its own. 13-2 really agitated me because it not only ate a good story in a sense, but it hurt me in a lore sense because it seems like you really can't get the story of it until the very end, and it seems like it's paywalled.
Yeah, it is. But anyway,
And 13-3,
it's aping
oh,
Majora's Mask.
yeah,
It's aping Majora's Mask.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we ran out of ideas, so we'll put you on a 3-day time period. Time period, and you have to use the equivalent of the Ocarina of Time and go back in time and keep on redoing stuff until you get strong enough to really get the real ending. I mean, like, basically, Final Fantasy 13 Trilogy should be called How to Lazily Create a RPG Franchise and just fail every step of the way. Anyway,
how about I simplify it for you? How to make how to destroy an RPG franchise?
well, I mean, I don't know if they destroyed it, but I'll say this much, because they're still making Final Fantasy games. I will say this much. I don't know how you could spend all that much money, talent, time making a game and it be that bad.
And that's one of the and the thing about Final Fantasy 13, graphically speaking, didn't age very well, even for a stylized game. Like, they put so much money into the graphics that I really don't think it aged all that well.
I think the graphics held up, but that's the only thing of Final Fantasy 13 that held up is the graphics. The Luminous engine, I will give Square Enix credit on that. The Luminous engine is good looking. I'll give the devil his due. The Luminous engine games do look good, but Final Fantasy has never been about the graphics. It's about the gameplay and the story. And, I would rather have an ugly Final Fantasy game that played well and had a good story than have a gorgeous looking Final Fantasy game that plays like trash and the story is trash, which is what we got with 13, 13.2, 13.3, Lightning Returns. It's just...
Well, I mean, the thing is, I remember when this game came out. The thing is, Final Fantasy became about graphics because of the FMVs. Like, people got so obsessed with the FMVs, and I guess they wanted...
Yeah, but the FMVs never looked like what you were getting in the
game. Yeah,
the game.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about it, right? Because I guess everybody wanted Final Fantasy to look like those FMVs. So I don't know.
Yeah, okay, for the casual people who started playing during the 5th gen on Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, yeah, the graphics were a big thing. But I'm an old school Final Fantasy fan. I started playing on the NES and the SNES. So, we didn't have FMVs. Yeah. All our cutscenes were in engine. So, for people like me, I don't care about, whenever I hear Square Enix, someone playing a Square Enix game or Square Enix themselves, the graphics have never looked more gorgeous. I'm like, oh, this game's going to be terrible. Because, basically, the better the graphics a Final Fantasy game has, the worse that game is going to be.
Yeah.
It's like a mathematical formula. A plus X equals Y. X plus Y equals Z.
Well, I guess Forspoken's going to be pretty terrible because that game looks really good.
Well, it's not a Final Fantasy game.
Well, it's not a Final Fantasy game, but it's still made by Square Enix.
Yeah, but that mathematical formula only applies to Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
The prettier Final Fantasy is, graphically, the worse the game, the worse the actual core gameplay loop is in the game.
Yeah.
Like the more features that are missing, the more stuff that used to be a core aspect to the series just isn't there. So whenever I see a good looking Final Fantasy game, I'm like,
It's
this is gonna suck.
trouble.
Yeah, this is gonna suck. I know some people are gonna get mad and be like, but I like Final Fantasy insert 7 remake. And, you know, if you like it, you like it. I don't.
Sorry.
That's my opinion.
I really think that people are giving that game way too much credit for being a game.
I mean, people are allowed to like what they like. Like there's tons of stuff that
but when it feels objectively worse than what came before, what it's inspired to be,
I agree.
facepalm.
But you know what? People are allowed to have it. I mean, I can make the same argument about Nintendo's Online, but there are people who like Nintendo's Online. So, you know, if they like it, they like it. I mean, it's
while we're on the topic of Nintendo's Online, the eShop decided to take it down Christmas Day.
Well, the eShop's been working all year, not doing jack and squat, so they need to take a break on Christmas. Come on. You know the little drips. You know the little drips and drab games that have been coming out on the NES and SNES online library, and that BS N64 and Genesis library. You know that's not what that's not what I would call a cavalcade of content.
Well, I mean, they I guess everybody that got a Switch for Christmas decided to log in at the same time, and it crashed the network. So, yeah, nothing like getting, that all digital feature. That sounds fantastic, doesn't it? Sounds fantastic. But
the thing is, my only thing is, okay, if Nintendo's Online was free like it used to be, I wouldn't complain, because it's like, I didn't pay for this. Yeah. I mean, you can't, like, if it's kind of like if you go to a restaurant and they give you free bread and the free bread is not like the freshest. Yeah. It's free. It comes with the table. Yeah. But if you charge me for the free bread, if you're like, hey, would you like bread? It's like $5 per loaf, and the bread is terrible, I'm gonna have a problem because I'm paying for it. And so, like, it's kind of like, I'm not really, But in all seriousness, that was a trolling comment I made. In all seriousness, I think the real issue just is you probably had a lot of people registering because Nintendo told them, hey, register on Christmas Day, register before Christmas Day, because there's going to be, like, what happened. Like, a lot of people got their N64, I mean their Switches, and they were like, look, they opened them up and they were filling stuff up because they were like, look, I gotta fill this up. I gotta get my money. I gotta make my account. Now, I made my account when I got my Switch, so I'm not really bothered by that. But a lot of people got Switches this year because you can't find an Xbox or a PS5.
Yeah, that's why the Switch was played.
I mean, that's one of the benefits of Nintendo using really old hardware, is that you can find those old bits and pieces of hardware, and they don't have to use as much stuff in order to make their stuff, so they're not like losing as much money. But if you're someone else, it's like, man, I lost a. Like, parents were like, I'm just gonna get a Switch because I can find a Switch. I cannot find a PS5.
Yeah, I ain't paying $1,500 for a PS5. That just ain't worth it.
I mean, no one would pay $1,500 for a PS5 unless, like, okay, if my job was streaming. No, if my job were streaming and like I was getting paid to play the PS5, I would probably get one. Yeah. But since that's not my job, then I have no reason to get a PS5 like that. Like, I'm not. you know,
I was gonna say I feel absolutely sorry in a sense for people that want the Xbox Series X and the PS5.
you know.
I mean, look at the secondary market.
Yeah, the secondary market is ain't no joke. It's bad. It's bad. You know, and the only reason people can't, the only reason you can find Switches is because the Switch came out first, and Nintendo had enough time to make a lot of them before the supply issues hit and everything like that. And that's a good thing, because if they hadn't done that, boy, the Switch would be getting hit too.
Though, if anything, I can only imagine how long it's gonna take before a new system comes out. Likely not
What
gonna be
for
fast.
Nintendo?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think we're reaching the point where you're reaching the point where their hardware, the age of the hardware is beginning to show, because certain games just aren't running all. I mean, let's keep it real. I mean, with the Switch, even in the beginning, a lot of games weren't running very well.
Nope.
Like, you know, like I said, Breath of the Wild crashed on me like 2 or 3 times while I was playing it. A first party game, okay, made by Tokyo EAD. They're the creme de la creme, and I don't think that was the developers. That was the hardware, okay. You know, that other game ran like trash. Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Play Xenoblade Chronicles 2. That game struggles to load certain areas. Struggles. Like, literally, the game is struggling to run. And, you know, that's the world we live in, you know, folks. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. So, I mean, I think just in terms of, like, hardware, I think the last big games you'll probably see for the Switch is probably going to be Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah.
And maybe Splatoon. And, Splatoon 3. Personally, and really, I think Splatoon 3 is going to be a cross-gen game. Yeah, I think it's going to be a cross-gen game. Because, I mean, at this point, like, you can see, like, okay, Kirby's Dream Land, the new Dreamland game, like, where, you know, that game looks like, the art style makes it look great, but you can see where there's certain, like, the in-engine cutscenes, you can see where the shit, where it's struggling. It's struggling. On a Kirby game, it's struggling. And I know if it's struggling with something like Kirby, which is all, like, simplistic geometric shapes, it's not, like, you know, like, it has to render realistic-looking high-res stuff.
Yeah.
If you have anything that's going to be, like, really, like, you know, it's just not going to run that well. And so, you know, the age of the hardware is showing with the Switch. So, you know, they gotta do something different. I don't know what, but they gotta do something different. I don't know what they're gonna do, but I don't know what. Personally, and this is just my own little supposition. I think that the next console is just gonna be like you know how the Wii was the GameCube, just powered up. I think the next thing is gonna be the Wii to the Switch's GameCube.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you know, isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I just haven't really been impressed with the Switch thus far. It's my least played console this gen. So, yeah. I want it to be, you know, I'm not gonna BS anyone and pretend like, yeah, it's great. I liked the Switch in the beginning, but then as I saw more and more like just worrisome things being done, that made it clear to me that just it, you know, it wasn't gonna scratch my itches.
Yeah. So for anything else you'd like to say about the eShop before we head on to our next topic?
it's funny that I had the
Okay.
only thing that the only thing that went wrong with me with trying to be on the eShop is when I was going on the Switch. I didn't have that much trouble when I was going on the eShop for the 3DS.
Yeah, because a lot of the people have moved on from the 3DS, so there's less traffic on those servers.
Yeah, but if anything, it at least let me able to check out some games on there and see. And even though it's a bit of a ghost town, I actually was able to see what offers they had on there.
Yeah, you of course you didn't have an issue on the 3DS eShop because most people have moved on from the 3DS. And I mean, I'm gonna keep it real. I know this is gonna sound kind of bad, but for me, most of the time when I buy, when I get games on my on the Switch, I get them off of the website. I don't go on the eShop.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like that I'm telling you something. Trying to find stuff on the Switch eShop is like Russian roulette sometimes.
Oh yeah.
That's funny because I use the filter in it. It works fine for me.
For me, like just how it's set up and how stuff is spaced, it just looks really sloppy and amateurish, and like, let me put it this way: the Wii had a really good uh, had a really good, well scanned, like how they had their eShop. It was done really well. The 3DS, I mean, I haven't looked at it recently, but back in the day, the 3DS had a good, well defined, like how they had their eShop set. But the Switch, I mean, that eShop, that eShop ain't no joke, man. It is. Ugh.
The thing I have a problem with the eShop is the lag.
Yeah, but I mean that's a back end thing. That's, like I said, that's an infrastructure thing. It's like, okay, I'm paying for this now. It should be better.
Yeah.
You know, like when it was free. Like, I mean, you had like issues like that when it was free, but it was like, I'm not paying for this, so I can understand them kind of cheaping out. But when you're charging people for it, it's like, look, this has to be better, dude. Can't be can't be charging me for something and then like it run poorly like that. Like that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, yeah. I buy most of my Nintendo games. I get most of mine for the Switch. I just buy them online. I don't. I get them off the website. I don't because you know. I tell you what I want them to do. Folders, folders.
Yeah,
Why does the 3DS and the Wii have folders?
Yeah.
And the Wii U have folders, and yet the Switch doesn't have folders.
Yeah, that's weird too.
Like, you know,
There's just a lot of little things. It's just like, why isn't this here? Why isn't that here? But yeah, so our
next topic. Yeah.
next topic. Our next topic is why Apple does not care about Mac OS gaming, and few reasons. They mostly rely on integrated graphics, unless you get their super high-end laptops, which have
Why?
have dedicated graphics that even desktop PCs can even cheaper desktop PCs can overtake. And then you have obviously there isn't the user base that buy Mac computers don't necessarily care about gaming. Like if you just have a Mac setup, you probably don't care about gaming. And number 3 would be the fact that they don't they make a lot more of their money off of their app store, so they would probably want developers to, go
Make
through
stuff that can be on the App Store.
on the App Store so they can get cut. They can get that 30% cut. So yeah. I don't know. What do you guys think?
And, it's
I
all about that money.
I was about to say that I have a feeling that this is going to be kind of like how Epic and Apple played, and we know how those two played out together. Rough.
I
It's all
mean,
about that money.
yeah,
I mean, like here's the thing. As a business owner, you want to make the most money with the least amount of expenditure. That's what you want to do. Okay? Now, if you are Apple and you don't have to spend a lot of money, all you have to do is spend your money basically helping to keep up the infrastructure, and you're making buku cash on.
In short, they're making profit off of maintenance, right?
Yeah, they're making profit off of just providing the infrastructure. They don't have to do anything else but just provide the infrastructure. They have no incentive to care about like gaming,
Yeah.
Not to mention, why would you want a game on a Mac anyway?
I was about to ask, do you know anybody that uses Macintosh systems for gaming?
I mean, aside from little like casual stuff, no.
No.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, what's the point,
Yeah, unless
Because the only time I know Apple does gaming is with their iPhone series.
And that's ultra casual.
Yeah. Yeah, Apple didn't really care about gaming. Like Steve Jobs, he was known for hating computer games. So
Yeah, which is hilarious because he got his start programming games on Atari. Matter of fact, he stole money from his good old friend Steve Wozniak.
yeah.
Steve Jobs, really, real piece of caca person.
He
No,
was pretty terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a real terrible human being.
Yeah, reason why I say he's one heck of a piece of dung.
Good businessman, terrible human being.
Yeah.
But those things kind of go hand in hand. People who are good at business but are terrible people.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. But yeah,
I mean, they have no incentive. That's all I'm saying. They
Yeah,
have zero incentive.
yeah, definitely. I don't think, unless you do something really special, I don't think people are gonna move from Linux and Windows to go to Mac OS to play games, especially since Mac OS isn't as open as Windows or Linux when it comes to what you can do with an application.
Yeah. Plus, Mac throttles their Apple throttles a lot of their hardware for other applications. So even if you did try and play, unless a game was specifically made for Apple, it's probably going to run like trash.
Anyway, all right. So next topic. Yeah, we covered the Eshop stuff. People do not know how to count, and this comes from a video I saw from Spawnwave a couple days ago, where he did a poll asking how many people consider the Switch a 9th gen console. Let me find the video real quick. I'll play the clip if I can. Oh.
These are the same people who think that the who thought that the Wii U wasn't an 8th gen console, even though it was.
Oh, gods. Yeah.
No, that's not it.
These people. But I can't say I can't say that I'm surprised that they don't think that the Switch is a 9th gen console.
Yeah, here's the clip. So here's the problem. Like I said, people forgot how to count. People, for some reason, they can't count. They have the Gabe Newell problem. They can't seem to count past 3. So or past
Can't count
2.
to 3.
Yeah, they can't count to 3. They can count 1, 2, 2.5, 2 and 0.65.
2.3. You'll never get me to say 3.
Yeah.
You'll never get me to say 3. You'll never ever get. I'll never say 3. That's why there's no Left 4 Dead 3.
So people can't count. People don't know the definitions of words. Let's look up. Let's look up the word generation. Generation definition. All right. Obviously, this one's pertaining to human. All the people born and living at about the same time regard collectively. That's one definition. The production of something. That's another definition. Now, none of them talk about advancements, in a particular thing. None of them talk about since this thing seems slightly better than this thing, then it can be counted as a generation, and not the fact that it just comes after the former thing. So this was a discussion we had during the Wii U era. The fact that people thought that the Wii U was not an 8th gen console, that was a 7th gen console, because Nintendo was finally doing HD graphics. And it's just kind of like, well, this is dumb.
Asinine.
Yeah, this is dumb. It's like that's not even what the word means. I mean, if you're gonna do stuff like this, come up with a new word. I don't know. That whole conversation is super annoying. Because
let's redefine it for technological sakes. Okay, generation can mean like the successive device or technology after the preceding device or technology, or it can mean a device that exists within a family of devices, or at least competitors of devices that exist within a certain time span of technology. So, for example, we call the NES the third gen Nintendo system, but there was no. Well, there technically was a second gen Nintendo system. It was an Atari. It was a Pong clone. But I mean, most people don't know about that. So when we say third gen, we mean like the consoles that were using 8-bit graphics. Like those were all third gen consoles. When we think fourth gen, we think 16-bit graphics. Then we reach fifth. Then we get fifth gen, where the bits become a little bit weird because the PlayStation, which is the most successful fifth gen console, was using 32-bit graphics. But the Sega Saturn and the N64 were using. Well, the Sega Saturn was a 32-bit console, but it could do 64-bit graphics. Same thing. The N64 was a 64-bit console. So, like, bits become just useless at a certain point.
Yeah. Because the GameCube and the Xbox were both 32-bit consoles.
Yeah. But they still I don't think the GameCube was a 32-bit console, but the Xbox was kind of ripping off the GameCube. But I know that the PS2 was a 32-bit console.
No, it was a 128-bit console.
Really? I thought the PS2 was a 32-bit console. But anyway.
No, they actually played the whole bit game. But
oh, really? They were like, it's 128 bits? Okay,
yeah.
Fine then. But suffice it to say, it was, like the bit game just kind of like, I don't know why people were so obsessed with it. It doesn't matter. It's about the games that you can play on your console. Because, I mean, let's keep it real. The Xbox, the Wii was the weakest 7th gen console, and it outsold everything for the first 3-4 years of its life cycle.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it just boils down to what you have to play on your system. You have good stuff to play, your system will do well. But I mean, that's all the generation should mean. It's basically something that comes out during a time of its predecessors, and then the next one is the next generation of that.
Yeah, it's always
like the Master System was Sega's 3rd gen system. The Sega Genesis was their 4th gen system. The Sega Saturn was their 5th gen system. The Dreamcast was their 6th gen system, and then they stopped making systems.
Yeah, the whole conversation of this just can't be counted as this generation because it's not using the same tech as these other platforms, which it just doesn't make any sense. But whatever, I guess
most of these people are speaking from ignorance.
Yeah,
and they're only going by what they can see. Okay, and what they see is that the Switch is having difficulty running certain games, and that's what they're saying. They're saying, "Hey, my Switch is like the only way it can run certain games is with the power of, the cloud."
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, none of us are here saying that, oh, well, no, the Switch is just as powerful as the Xbox Series X and S and the PlayStation. We've talked about the problems with the Switch and the optimization issues / the power issues. It's just words mean something, and these weird definitions of words that don't really exist. I just don't get. I just don't follow.
People just want to find a reason to complain. Like I said, the big issue with people not knowing how to count is that most gamers don't have any concept of what the generations mean. Like, you can't use the successive generation because a lot of these companies didn't have a previous generation console, or if they did, it's so obscure that no one cares.
Yeah.
Like no one talks about the first gen consoles. No one cares about the first gen consoles, aside from people who are buffs about this type of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, most people aren't going to know. Yeah, well, the first generation consoles were things like the Magnavox, or not the Fairchild Channel F, and the Intellivision. Like, those were like their first gen systems, and they were mostly everything was a Pong clone or really overly simplistic games that you plugged into your TV. Most people don't know that. Most people measure gaming by Atari with the with the second gen, then Nintendo with the third gen, and then everything that sprung off after that. That's what people remember. So that's just people don't care about that, and people go by what they see, not by what they know. And what they see with the Switch is a lot of these games are not, a lot of these next gen games aren't coming to the Switch, and if they are, they're coming with the power of the cloud. Not because they're running natively on the hardware. The games that do run natively on the hardware are downgraded, some of which severely, to run on the hardware. The fact of the matter is that for Nintendo, the Switch is their 9th gen system.
Yeah.
Technologically speaking, that means that the Switch is packing tech that was top of the line in maybe 2013.
Yeah.
2012. But I mean, before people get their buttocks on their shoulders about that, look, the PS5 and the Xbox One are using tech that was top of the line maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe not even 3 at this point, 4. Okay, so and it's gonna be by the time you pick up your your Xbox Series X and your PS5, like those come to market, they're obsolete. They're 2-3 years behind the curve. Okay, so people need to get over that. They need to understand that they're 2 or 3 years behind the curve. Get over it.
Yeah.
That's okay. So, I'm just saying, people need to calm down and quit whining. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, okay, you should know that you're not gonna get, like, the only time Nintendo really played with power was with the GameCube.
Yeah.
Like, you're not gonna get Nintendo playing with power on any other console at this point. Because it's the power game. I mean, you see Microsoft and Sony putting their first party games on PC, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
They aren't doing that because they really care about the PC audience. They're doing that because these games are getting so expensive, they need another market in order to produce revenue out of. Because it's not enough to have it sell okay on console.
Yeah.
Because people are buying these consoles for the third-party games. They're not buying them for the first-party games. The only people whose console is getting bought for the first-party games is Nintendo.
Yep. Because, they have IPs that are recognizable, that have been around for decades.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Microsoft has Halo, but it's always been kind of somewhat parity with PC anyway. And then you have... Yeah, you don't think so?
And I think the first Halo kind of was because Halo 1 was on PC and Halo 2 was on PC. Halo 3 was not on PC.
Yeah. Oh.
It was console exclusive.
Yeah, that game actually didn't come to PC until much later through the Master Chief Collection.
Yeah, and that was years after the fact.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, like they're putting this stuff. Microsoft has almost always put their stuff on PC because they began as a PC company. But Sony, it's a big deal. They want to put their games on PC. You want to know why? Because their games are expensive to make, and they want to make money.
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with. Everyone's like, oh well, these games are expensive to make and they want to make money.
Yeah.
Once again, it all boils down to money.
Well, is there any final topics before we close the show?
Nah, I got nothing.
Got nothing.
I
Joel?
got nothing.
Well, I mean, if that's pretty much all she wrote. So if you guys want to give your sign offs, then we could call it a night.
Okay, I'm gonna say something. Just really quick. It's not a topic. It's just kind of a side piece to unpopular opinion. Unpopular opinion. 2021, which people said were terrible. Was a terrible year for gaming. There were actually some really good games that came out this year.
Yeah.
But they aren't being talked about because they've been overshadowed by trash games that came out this year.
Yeah, that's the funny thing, right?
Yeah. Sadly, yeah.
There were some legit good games that came out this year. But anyway, this is Mr. Red Fox, owner proprietor BS Busters, a podcast where we talk about BS and people messing up and showing their behinds, and we point it out and then give constructive criticism or just pick at them if it's something that they should have known better to not do. So that's the end. That's all I had to say. Joel, you have anything you want to add?
Thank you for joining us on this Project Console. And sadly, this will be the last one for the year. But if anything, we thank you for joining us at this very enough times.
Thank you.
Well, this is Kenoshi Abominito, Project Console, episode 12. We forgot the recipe. Calling it a night. See you guys next week in 2022. Later.
Watch Spider-Man No Way Home. It's good.